Our next guest is the lovely Kerri Doherty.
Thank you, David and Cammie. Oh, that's Hey Carrie Ann. That's me. I really wish that I was the girl in Andy's story to be described with pear-shaped breasts and to have multiple orgasms. That's not me. We've met once. This is going to be awkward when we talk afterwards. Now to segue from multiple orgasms to a story about my mother. So my mother is a creature of habit. Every night at 8 o'clock, she lays down to go to bed, and following a single rerun of The Nanny, she promptly falls asleep. So a few years ago, when she calls me in Brooklyn around midnight, I assume that when I pick up the phone, it's going to be really tragic news. I'm, kind of preparing myself. So I answer the phone, and I'm like, who died? Was it Grandma? Did my dog die? And she laughs, and I'm like, oh my God, Grandma died, didn't she? And she's like, no one died. I'm like, why are you calling me at midnight? And she's like, well, I watched The Nanny, and then I couldn't fall asleep, so I stayed up for a while, and I ended up watching the news, and they had a story about a girl who was fired from her job at Claire's because she got caught piercing her own labia while on the clock. And I'm like, was this woman you? Was it Grandma? It's midnight. Are you high? And she's like, and she just powers on. She's like, what kind of person does that? Who puts a gun to their vagina in public? I tell you, kiddo, it just goes to show there's still crazies and nutjobs in this world. It is midnight, and my mother has called to discuss a stranger's vagina. Hello, kettle? So this phone call becomes the first in kind of a series of this ritual where my mother, who now stays up late, she decides she's going to watch the local news. And anytime there's a weird, fucked up story about someone who just does something strange, she feels the need to call me at midnight and tell me about it. Like a Lowell man who's arrested because he shoots a gun at his lawnmower when it won't start, or a South Boston woman who applies for a license to marry her pet mallard. These are all people that she calls me about, each one just another crazy whack job, nut job in this world. So around the time that these phone calls start, my relationship with a comedian starts getting pretty serious. We had been together for a while, and we were sort of at that point in the relationship where we were putting toothbrushes in each other's medicine cabinets and using the terms we instead of I to plan things oh, when are we going to Georgia? And I was really happy, it was going really well, and I was starting to think that he was the uno. And my mother really wanted to meet him. And I thought that was a really bad idea. And the reason why is because my boyfriend was Jewish, and my Catholic late-night television news-watching, loving mother, who still lives in the same small town in Massachusetts where I grew up, has never met a Jew before, and therefore thinks that they're exotic creatures like unicorns. And so when I first tell her, I'm like, yeah, I'm dating this guy, he's a comedian, he's Jewish, she gets really excited. And she's like, okay, this is great. I'm gonna go on Wikipedia, I'm gonna learn all about the Jews, and I'm gonna meet him, and it's gonna be so much fun, and it'll be great. And I'm like, well, my boyfriend is a comedian. He makes fun of people for a living. The last thing I'm going to do is bring him home to meet you. Because I know that if we go, she's going to, try to be supportive and show that she, knows about the Jews. So I know that if we go, she's going to, answer the door wearing, a yarmulke with, a cat on it. And she's going to, throw gelt at us, some bastardized version of rice at a wedding. And I know all this is going to happen. And then he's going to be like, that's stupid. And he's going to break up with me. My family's crazy. So I keep putting off her invitations to bring him home. So one day I get this package in the mail from my mother, and it is addressed to both me and my boyfriend. I open up this box, and staring up at me, like two little orphaned puppies in the corner of the box, are these two yo-yos. And they are white, and they're sparkly, and they're emblazoned with the Star of David. So I call my mother, and she picks up the phone, and she's like, Shalom! And I'm like, hi, Mom. What's this? And she's like, oh, well, I've been wanting to meet your boyfriend, your Jew hunk. And I was at the dollar store shopping with your grandmother, and we saw these 2 Star of David yo-yos, and I was like, you know what? I bet Kerri and her boyfriend would really like these. They can go down to the temple, in their neighborhood, and they can like yo-yo with the other kids and, appreciate his culture. And she like based this whole idea of us like wanting to yo-yo just on the fact that she had found something with like a Jewish symbol on it. Like she knows I don't yo-yo. And I think it's a little creepy that she thinks that me and my boyfriend would like go down to the temple on 8th Avenue and Park Slope and like sling yo-yos with the other kids like some like weird hipster pedophiles. Like who does that? So I say, thank you, Mom. And before we get off the phone, she says, they're special, the yo-yos. And I'm like, oh, someone special. So I immediately, I cannot show these to my boyfriend. And in fact, my mother has just proven why I have not yet brought him home to meet her, because she would have done shit like this. So, but I cannot throw these stupid, retarded yo-yos away. And here's why. I don't know if you guys watch Hoarders, but there are some people on Hoarders where if someone has given them a gift, even if it's like a bottle of water, if someone has given them something and they throw it away, then what that means is they're throwing the love they have for that person away. And it's crazy and it's irrational, but that's how I feel. So if I throw these stupid yo-yos away, then it means I don't love my mother. So I can't do that. But what I can do is kick them under the bed next to the dust bunnies and the used condom wrappers. And that's fine, because it still means I love my mother having thrown them away. So this is exactly what I do, and I completely forget about them. So like a week later, my boyfriend and I, we go out on this date, we have dinner, we go out for drinks, it's amazing, we're so in love. And we get back to my apartment, and we're wasted. And we just kind of collapse onto my bed. And in the middle of the night, he kind of shakes me. He wakes me up, and he's like, hey, your phone's ringing. And I'm like, ugh. It's probably just my mother calling to tell me about some midget in Cambridge who burned down a big and tall store. So I look for my phone and I find it and I look and the phone isn't ringing. And I'm like, what is that noise coming from? And my boyfriend leans over to me and he's like, is that Hava Nagila? And I shoot up in bed. And I hear it, and it's coming from underneath the bed where the special musical yo-yos are. So I freak out. I jump onto the floor. I'm like army crawling underneath the bed, and I see, and the box is still there, and it is glowing. These fuckers light up. It's glowing red, and they're just singing, and I'm trying to reach for it, and I'm trying to also call up to my boyfriend at the same time because I'm trying to talk over the sound of the yo-yos. So I'm just no, I don't think that you're hearing Hava Nagila. I think that you're dreaming. I think we're both dreaming. I think we're dreaming. And I'm just just jibber jabber, nothing. And then I finally grab the box and I kind of crawl back under, and I'm just scraping my naked back against the wood that's underneath the bed. And so I come out and I sort of stand back up with the yo-yos and I look, and he's wasted. He's fallen back asleep. He's got a pillow over his head. And I'm like, all right. So I run into the bathroom, and these two things, both of them are singing. They're just Hava Nagila Hava, like a creepy set of identical twins from The Shining. It is fucked up. So I'm looking at them, and I'm looking, and there is no off switch. And I'm like, oh my God, I have to get them to stop because these are loud, and my apartment is not big because this is New York. And so I try prying them apart with my hands, but they're like these super Jew yo-yos, and they won't come apart. So I take them, and I throw them down on my bathroom rug, and I fold the rug in half, and I grab a bottle of laundry detergent, and I just start smashing it up against the rug. I'm throwing the full weight of my body, but they still will not stop. They're just still Hava Nagila Hava. And I'm like, I'll drown them. So I fill up the sink with water, and I take them, and I plunge them into the sink, and I'm just squeezing them, and they're still singing from the water. They're just horrible, and a burble, horrible, and they're still going. And I start projecting all of my anger, just every feeling I have about my mother onto these yo-yos. I'm like, you will not ruin my relationship from 500 miles away. Do you hear me? I'm like, you will not ruin it, you stupid Jewish yo-yo fucks. And I'm screaming. And I look up, and I catch a glimpse of myself in the mirror. I am sweaty. I am naked. My face is crimson. And I have this wild look in my eyes, like the serial killers that I see on Criminal Minds. And I look down, and there are this ribbons of pink swirling in the sink because I've squeezed the yo-yos so hard the string has actually cut my fingers. And I realize I have lost it. So I slowly release the yo-yos, and they just clink, and they just stop. So the room is just really quiet now. So I'm kind of catching my breath, and I back up, and I kind of like slump against the tub and just kind of go down to the floor. And I start thinking of my boyfriend, and I'm like, oh God, did he hear any of that? Am I going to have to admit my shameful secret? If I do, will he break up with me? And then I think of my mother and how tomorrow night she's going to be getting into bed at 8 p.m. She'll watch The Nanny, and then she'll watch the late night news, and she'll learn of a Catholic girl in Brooklyn who, in an apparent act of anti-Semitism, drowned 2 Jewish yo-yos naked and in her own bloody water. And she'll pick up the phone because she knows who she's got to call to tell this. And as she's dialing her child in New York, she'll say to herself, just goes to show there's still crazies and nut jobs in this world. Thank you.